An absolutely massive weekend for video game collecting. You guys knew we were going to have to talk about this. Castlevania Hang Tab first print factory sealed copy sells on eBay ungraded for $90,100. And I know that a lot of people are going to see this. They're going to be talking about this on forums, Reddits, wherever, right? $90,000 for a video game. This is going to be fake, scam, shill bidding, fake sale, money laundering. Everyone is going to be saying everything about this sale. And the reason we're going to talk about it today, well, two reasons we're going to talk about it. One being, yes, this is now a brand new record, most expensive game ever sold on eBay. And number two is because the buyer of this video game is known. The buyer is going to pay for this. We know who bought this game. And I am actually going to tell you who bought this game later in the video, but if I tell you right now, the name won't mean anything to you. After we talk about this Castlevania, we're actually going to look at some of the history of the most expensive video games ever sold on eBay, and it's honestly super fun. There's a lot of names that you're going to recognize if you've been in this hobby for a long time, and it actually just so happens to tie together with this $90,000 Castlevania sale right here. So say thank you to every single patron who helps support the channel, as well as the YouTube members. I can't do this without you guys. Hit the like button, and let's talk about insanely expensive video games. So the Castlevania in question here is a first production hang tab no rev A copy. If you don't know what any of this means, on the back of the game here, the Castlevania has this built-in hang tab. This makes it part of the earliest production run that exists for Castlevania on NES. There's currently 3 of this particular copy on the WATA Pop Report, and there's thought to be about 3 on the VGA Pop Report as well. But of those 3 on the VGA Pop Report, 2 of them were crossed over to WATA. So we have 4 unique graded copies that are known to exist at this time. This right here would be the 5th confirmed copy to exist. And it is such a special game that the owners of these copies are even known. Like, here is the 9.0 copy of Castlevania. You can see it in the background here. This is the dentist character, if you remember Eric from in the Carl Jobst video. If you pay attention in this hobby, you probably recognize this guy, but he does have the 9.0 Castlevania back there. And then there's also this copy that exists, the 9.2A+, which was actually brought to market in 2021. It's owned by the guys who own Comic Connect, I believe, and they were asking 1.25 million. That's a 9.2A+, and they brought it to market right after the 1.5 million Super Mario 64. So relatively speaking, I mean, if Mario 64 is going to sell for 1.5 million, they probably weren't crazy asking 1.25 million for it. I don't know if this copy ever traded hands. I don't know if it ever did sell, but back in 2021 at that time, it genuinely probably was worth close to $1 million. It's insane to think. So with all of that said, there's 5 known graded copies. So as far as being rare goes, Castlevania early hang tab, it is as rare as it comes. Then we can talk about the $90,000. Should it have sold for $90,000? What is this worth? And if we just look at the bidding, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 unique accounts that are above $80,000 on this. So in this $80,000 range, there was absolutely multiple people interested in this. The $90,000 bidder is also shared on Instagram that he was bidding on this game. So I mean, as far as $90,000 goes, this game was never going to sell for like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. That was never going to happen. Even very nice complete in-box copies of this now. This is not factory sealed. That's a nice CIB hang tab copy of Castlevania. Last month brought in $7,200. Complete in box sells for $7,000. Factory sealed late print copy here selling for $14,400. Like, you can get a later production copy here, beautiful grade, for a modest price, if I want to call that, for $14,000. But truly, the emphasis is on the early print here, factory sealed. And I mean, if you just go through the photos, you can see on the side here there is like a bit of a ridge on the left side of the box. But going through the photos, I mean, it's in really nice condition. Minor wear is all you're gonna see. So I mean, once this actually does get graded, it could be a 9.2, 9.4, A+. Like, it's a nice copy of the game. I think there's a little bit of a ding there on the top, but nice copy of the game. And the big thing too is that it did sell on eBay, right? Seeing a video game even sell for $10,000 on eBay is pretty weird. $90,000 simply doesn't happen. Like, you're not supposed to see video games like this sell on eBay, right? Of course, on heritage auctions, golden auctions, we've seen video games sell for $1 million, right? We've seen over 100,000 multiple times. And the thing is, when we get into these super high-end collectibles, people use these private auction houses. Like, I truly do think if you were to take this Castlevania, get it graded, and send it to one of the premier auction houses, you would get more for it than $90,000. There's simply risk. There's inherent risk built in into selling something like this on eBay. Like, it's $90,000 here. I greatly assume that the buyer is going to drive physically to go get this, fly to wherever he has to go, right? This won't go in the mail. But for a regular person to just sell something for $90,000 on eBay, there's a lot of safeguards that just aren't in place on eBay to protect both the buyer and seller from potential scams. When you consign with one of the auction houses, they handle all fulfillment. The game is in-house. The auction house has full insurance on the video game. If anything happens from the time it goes from the auction house to the buyer of the game, all of that is covered. You don't have to worry about anything. Frankly, the seller kind of got lucky that the buyer is a known person within this community. The buyer is a trustworthy person. There's a lot that can go wrong with a person-to-person transaction on eBay for this kind of money amount. That's why we just don't see stuff like this on eBay. It's basically just not a good idea to do it. So it's a brand new record at 90,000, which does bring up the question of what else has sold on eBay for insane amounts of money. And when we look into the history of this, we actually go back 10 to 15 years. So one of the biggest sales that always pops into my mind is this factory sealed Super Mario Bros. For $30,000, right? That is July 2017. So remember in 2019, there was the $100,000 Mario Bros. That sold, and everyone is like, oh, the most common game, Super Mario, has never been worth this much. It's a scam. Whatever it is, right? The big thing was that Mario is not worth this much, but back in 2017 on eBay open auction, we already had Hang Tab Mario selling for $30,000. Now, the craziest thing about this sale here for $30,000, you can actually click on this eBay auction on mobile and it still brings up the picture, and I need you to look closely at who the seller is for this video game. DK Oldies sold this game in 2017 for $30,000. Like, that is man, that is like a parallel universe, multiple dimension type thing. Back in 2017, DK Oldies wasn't known. They weren't like a brand that everyone's aware of, right? There was no Joey giving you a free kick in the nuts because your order got picked. All of that didn't exist. The seller name, quite frankly, meant nothing. I followed this auction closely in 2017 and I never once recognized the seller name. Doing research for this and seeing that it was DK Oldies who sold it is just it blew my mind. But that was in 2017 and $30,000, which was a big sale, right? Obviously, it got articles made about it. That's a massive sale, but that's like the third most expensive sale that we've seen. It's not really even that big of a deal. Going to the second most expensive sale ever, we're going all the way back to February 2010. This is 14 years ago, where a factory sealed stadium events sold on eBay for $41,300. It is extremely difficult to even contextualize how much money that was back in 2010 for a video game. Like, that is crazy. This article here is written by JJ Hendricks with pricecharting.com. It says underneath here that this stadium events that sold for $41,000, it outsold Nintendo Campus Challenge, which sold for $20,000, and it also outsold Nintendo World Championships Gold, the gold cartridge, the Holy Grail, which sold for $21,000. Nintendo Campus Challenge being a literal one of one selling back in 2009. And this stadium events was just a random person who happened to still own this video game, slapped it on eBay, and $41,000 later, they had the most expensive game ever sold ever at auction anywhere. This was the crowning game for a lot of years here. And just before we get to the number one most expensive game ever sold, I do have to give honorary mention here to the $100,000 gold Nintendo World Championships. As far as I can tell about this, none of these copies were actually paid. You can still even click on some of these links, which is actually crazy, and here is the gold cartridge on eBay. You can see the winning bid was $100,088, but like I said, there's absolutely nothing confirming that this was paid. Even in this article, it's talking about the ripped gray Nintendo World Championship here. It sold for $100,000 as well, but people were just shill bidding these. So as far as I can see with any of these articles written back in, I think this one, yeah, this is a 2014 article here. As far as I can tell with these Nintendo World Championship cartridges, none of them actually sold, at least not on eBay. They might have traded hands privately, but none of the ones that went to eBay sold for any ridiculous amount. But then we go to the most expensive video game that I can confirm was actually paid, actually sold on eBay, and it wasn't an auction. This was via buy it now. It's this ugly yellow thing that I'm showing you here on my screen. And what this is a prototype for The Legend of Zelda on NES. It's dated February 23rd, 1987 on it. I do remember this as well. This was like a big deal at the time, right? If you were on Nintendo Age, Digit Press, if you were in some of these forums back then, this is 2012 by the way. If you were in the forums back then and following like the high-end side of the hobby, this was big news. So this was posted for sale for $150,000 and eventually sold for a little bit over $50,000. And it says the seller here was Tom Curtin, which is where our story starts to get really fun and really interesting. So who is Tom Curtin? Again, some of you guys might remember him if you were back on the Nintendo Age days. His username was Minus Worlds. And I'm pretty sure he also exists on Instagram under that username. Like, he is still in the hobby today. Some of you newer guys might remember the marketplace Minus Worlds, which launched in 2021. It's now closed down. What it was a graded video game marketplace. Minus Worlds, that name for the company, came from Tom, from his old username on Nintendo Age. So Tom has had a lot of effect on this hobby, even if you don't actually know who he is. But what really ties it all together here with Tom Curtin is that he is the person who purchased this factory sealed copy of Castlevania for $90,000. It truly is one of those small world type of things where the people who have been collecting this stuff, the people who have cared about video games for 10, 15 years, well before WATA, well before the price tags, the people who truly cared about this stuff have been around forever. And learning that it was him who purchased this, the same guy who sold the Zelda prototype for $50,000 13 years ago, the same guy that I personally was talking with on Nintendo Age all the way back in 2013. Who knows what I was even talking about? All things VGA related, 2013. I would have been 19 years old. I can only imagine what kind of stupid thing I said that Tom felt the need to go ahead and quote me on it. But just seeing where the hobby is now, where it used to be, seeing all these familiar names, frickin' DK oldies popping up in the history books. I don't know, man. I love this hobby. Just puts a big smile on my face. It's crazy how far this hobby has come. Hopefully this rabbit hole was as fun to you as it was to me, because seriously, this was so much fun to make. Let me know if you think this Castlevania was a good purchase or not. Like I said, I really think you could just get it graded, send it to Heritage, and sell it for more, but hopefully Tom ends up keeping it. It would make the story even better. Hit the like button before you go, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.